Serious, children of teen parents, how is your relationship with them? Single mom, had my brother at 16, me at 19. And life is ducking awesome. We started off in a third world country, moved to the US, and life kept getting better. Came to the US with no money, no job, just opportunity. We now live in a very nice neighborhood in a great home with 3 new cars. Mom was proof that hard work pays off. Worked 3 jobs for the holiday seasons. Never realized it when I was younger. She made both of us take education very seriously. I'm working on a major in CS and bro graduated with a major in economics. I wouldn't change anything about my past. She was both my mom and dad, and if all mom were like this, world would be a much better place. Mama had me when she was 15-16. Crazy young. But she had a rough childhood. It seems meeting my father and having me took her away from the HR that was her childhood. I can't quite describe what life is with her. Bittersweet, I guess. She had a lot of maturing to do. All while raising me and dealing with the marriage. Me being the first. I dealt with the domestic violence, her being the aggressor. Guys can be victims, believe me, and her discipline. We had our rough patches, but now being 23 I see how much she's matured. We basically grew together. The pain. The love. She's 37 but we get along like old friends. She's still a bit overprotective, Marisa, with my younger brothers, but I realized she hadn't experienced what it is to be a young adult dating. Hanging out with friends. Getting drunk high. Just being a careless 18-year-old. She went from being a child to a mother in a year. My mom had me less than a month after turning 17. My dad is 13 years older than her, but I think that's the only reason we are doing well as a family. My parents have had 2 more children, 2 girls 5 and 12, and we are all very happy. I have a great relationship with both my parents. My dad is really like my best friend and someone that I look up to all the time. According to everyone in the family, I'm exactly like him, and hearing that always puts a smile on my face. My mom is one of those cool moms, but is also very strict with certain things and balances both well. I can say that when I was young 4-10 my mom was probably overly strict. She also kicked my ass a lot when I was being a pain in the ass. I never asked my parents why my mom got pregnant with a man 13 years older than her when she was only 16. At this point I don't really care. However, she has told me that because my father was already an established adult, she was in a much better situation than other teen moms who are usually with other teens. Since my mom had me so young, she is having her fun now. She's 37 now, and her and my dad have a date night at least once a week. I don't mind staying home with my sisters because I like seeing my parents happy. My mom had me at 14. A month from being 15. Our relationship was always really close, and she joked that we kinda grew up together. However, she sometimes doesn't know the line between friend and mom. She tells me things that she should talk to friends about sometimes. Not me. And about 2 years ago she went through a traumatic event with a cop. Smoked fake weed all the time. Adopted animals, then didn't take care of the house. Then put the dogs on the porch to just sheet there and never clean it. It was disgusting. So I left for my dad's. And she's doing a lot better now. She's got a house with a great guy. Doesn't smoke that stuff anymore. And is generally happier. However, I don't want to move back because shit gets done here. I've needed braces for years and I'm finally about to get them. If I miss the bus BC my alarm goes off, they don't get mad. They know shit happens. Probably gonna get buried in this. Mom and dad both had me at 19. Dad dropped out of college to pay for our needs. Continued to pay child support out the years after they split up. They never married. Mom made a lot of mistakes. Even with the great opportunities she was given. She had 2 bachelor's degrees, never did anything with them. Loving family that supported her and I. She took them all for granted. Started smoking meth around when I was 8. And this was after she was married with 2 more kids besides me. No ducking clue why she'd do that. She had a great existence. After that happened, my family tore to pieces and I got moved with my dad. Dad loves me to death. He and mom both. But like earlier posts, he was a friend and not a parent. This being said, when I was being punished for something, it always came to blows between us. And minuscule problems resulted in extreme punishments and hostility. I am now 17. Having trouble finishing strong in high school. Hoping to get into college somewhere and get away from everything. I haven't spoken to my mom or siblings in years now. Maybe I'll reach out in a year or two. Overall, I haven't had a role model or anyone to bounce off of. I'm pretty ducked in the head. Sorry this was so long. My mom had me at 19. I wish she hadn't. We were poor and the only reason I was born was because she was scared my father would leave her. 2 years later my father leaves. Not a big shocker. I never got a childhood because my mom was rather sick. I was lucky and she got a boyfriend who took me on as his own child. When I was 16 I was pretty depressed. Due to how sick my mother was, mentally and physically, I wasn't able to go out and have friends. Just after my 16th birthday my mom finally gave up and killed herself. I never saw her as my mother or as a friend. She was just the woman who had authority over me even though she really shouldn't have. My mom got pregnant with me when she was 15 and my dad was 22. She was a sophomore in high school. Fast forward to now and I have 7 siblings. 2 of them adopted and in college. My mom has her master's degree in education and my dad owns a contracting business. They have been happily married for 15 years. I graduated 2 years early and am in college hoping to go to medical school and become a surgeon. I love my parents and they did everything right. They raised me to be a person I am proud of without putting aside their dreams for success. My mom had me when she was 16. My brother a year later. And my sister 3 years after him. She tried but she was not ready for us. She troubled with mental illness that just went untreated for so long because of us. I have no relationship with either of my parents now. I wish that having us would have made them grow up a bit but they are probably still both acting like entitled teenagers right now wherever they are. My parents had me at 17. I didn't have a relationship with my father until I got about 15 years old because he didn't want to be a part of my life. I lived with my mom and my grandparents all of my life. I looked to my grandparents as my actual parents, which my mom really hated. My mom and I didn't have a good relationship until I moved out of the house and went to college. Now my mom and I have the most amazing relationship. I think it helped that we both just grew up a bit and now we have so much in common. It's a great feeling to have my mom be my best friend. I just wish I had a better relationship when I was growing up. It hurts me to this day to look back and not remember any special moments shared together when I was younger. My mom had me when she was 18. I'm 19 now and she's my best friend. She used to be somewhat strict but I've never really been a troublemaker. She loosened up a lot when I was 17. To deal with my actual troublemaker brother. 16. The only thing I do that could be seen as bad is smoke weed up. And my mom will light up with me. I guess it's just cool that she can remember being my age and experimenting with things so she's never judgmental. My mom was 14 and my dad was 15. I love my mom very much. It's been super rocky but we still get along incredibly well. I didn't know my dad was my dad until I was about 18. We fought lots because he is super immature. We rarely talk now because don't get along very well. I'm 23. Mom had me when I was 19. My sister when she was 15. My brother when she was 22. Growing up we had a lot. She was great. A little strict but we grew up fine. I love my mom to death. She did so much for us. I was always considered the easy kid. My sister and she butted heads quite a bit. She moved out at 16 and they had a really awful relationship up until she was 22. My brother started to rebel at a young age. About 14. He grew out of it at 17. I was always very close with my mom. I had my moments of issue but it never lasted long. My sister had a different father than my brother and I. And my mom isn't with my dad either. My stepdad has been with us since I was 8 or 9. Anyway, my mom has always suffered from depression and attempted suicide twice in a span of 2 months about 2 years ago. She was diagnosed with bipolar schizophrenia. It was so hard for the first year. But she's been stable for the last year. I'm so damn happy she is. I couldn't imagine losing her. My mum had me at 15 and she was pretty great when I was little, but then suffered postnatal depression after having my brother. Got divorced from my stepdad. Moved us all 200 miles away from support and she went off the rails, drinking. Bringing different men back every night, yada yada. I had my daughter when I was just gone 16 and 3 months later she abandoned us and moved back the 200 miles to where we had come from. I couldn't go as now had a whole new life. Serious boyfriend and child where we were. It ruined our relationship for sure. The culmination of everything. I've done things very differently with my daughter and have given her constant stability and love. We have an absolutely fantastic relationship and she's 18 now. I know she would say the same thing. I think the key is not being their friend, you have to be the parent. Or rather, I'm her friend and she can come to me with anything and frequently does. But I never lean on her or give her too much information. She's seen me cry once in our entire lives. She's an absolutely wonderful kid and I'm happy that I've done a good job so far. I know she agrees. She defends teen mums and explains about me whenever the subject arises. Better as they get older. Eldest is 20. Living with her BF. She's like me and if we're together for long periods of time we fight. But other than that it's good. She broke me heart when she was a teenager. Every day I dread the phone ringing. But she grew up and is now a lovely girl. Middle child is 18 and she's moved her BF in with us. We have a calmer relationship. Not to say we don't have arguments. Youngest us almost 14. He's pushing boundaries. He's exhausting me. We can go for weeks not getting into trouble. But then he'll do something really stupid and get into loads of trouble. We haven't spoken in years. My relationship with my mom is decent. She got pregnant at 18 and had me at 19. She married my dad while 4 months pregnant. They got divorced after 8 years because of my dad's physical abuse. My mom then moved on to my current stepdad who is a total jackass and verbally abused me throughout my teen years. I still hold resentment towards my mom for staying with him even though I know it's because she's insecure. That being said, now that I'm an adult things are better. Growing up we were extremely poor. Living off her meager salary. My mom has 2 college degrees and works as a special needs teacher now. She always wanted me to go to college right after high school since she didn't get the chance to. She was ridiculously overprotective in high school, but on the flip side would let me and my friends underage drink with her and her friends. My mom was a decent mother. She was young and didn't have resources like the internet to deal with certain problems, but overall it could have been worse. I love my mom. She sacrificed a lot for my sister and I. Even if she did make some mistakes. My mom had me when she was 15. My dad was 18. They got married about a month before I was born and are still married today. My dad had severe depression and suffers from alcoholism. He lost his dad at 16 and everyone that was like a father to him soon after. Which I don't think he ever coped with. I have 3 younger siblings but they were all born by the time my mom was 23. I didn't grow up with much but I didn't know that at the time. I appreciate things so much more now because of how things used to be. I remember when mom had to hide our cars so that they wouldn't get repossessed. Or when we'd have kerosene heaters everywhere because we didn't have electric sometimes in the winter. But you know what? We never knew what any of it meant at the time. We were blissfully ignorant. Because mom always found a way to get us not only what we needed but what we wanted. I never remember a Christmas or birthday that I couldn't check everything off my list. My parents are and have always been great and I wouldn't change our relationship for the world. And I love that we are close in age. I'm currently expecting my first child and I'm so happy they will have young grandparents that they can grow up with. It wasn't easy and my parents have struggled at times for the path they chose, but they always say you can't take money with you to the grave. And that your family is your real legacy, so I'm sure they feel the same in that we wouldn't change a thing. My mom had me at 16 and my dad left before I was born. All in all, our relationship is pretty good. A lot of my friends are surprised I talk to her more as a friend than just my mother. We've been through some rough patches and I think it has made us closer. She's about to graduate nursing school and she's very excited so we can finally have the life she always wanted for me. My parents were 17 when I was born and 19 when my brother was. They're still together surprisingly. I think my dad cheated. But whatever, it's not my business. I get along with them well. But my dad can definitely be a giant duck. When he's mad, he's mad. Like break things mad. I can get over that because he always was cool and helped coach my teams when I was little. So we got to spend a lot of time together. My brother hates him though. My mom is cool. But she can be illogical and emotional a lot. I guess that's mothers though. My mom got pregnant with me at 14 and had me at 15. My dad was 17 when I was born. A year later or so they got married in Reno and went on to have 3 more kids. Our relationship is shit. Seriously. It's a huge pile of steaming caca. They were not great parents or great people. Really. Basically. They were simultaneously neglectful and controlling, and I feel like they used me to raise my siblings. I was never allowed to go out or hang out with friends. It felt like they took every opportunity they had to demean their children and make them feel less than adequate. They lived vicariously through us. And in the off chance that one of us failed at something, such as failing to place in a martial arts tournament, they would scream and criticize us for hours. Mind you, these were elite tournaments and second place is still a huge accomplishment. But if we didn't give them anything to brag about, they treated us as if we were nothing. On top of all that, I was abused by my paternal grandfather. As a teen I told them what had happened and they did not support me getting therapy. Years later, they moved across the world to take care of him in his dying years. My mother would constantly post about what a fighter he was and how he was just the greatest guy ever. After they decided to move to be with him, I sent them an email telling them to never, ever talk to me again. I have never been happier. Aside from being terrible parents, they're also pretty crappy grandparents. Even when we were still civil and communicating, they would constantly flake out on Skype dates with my children and made little effort to contact them otherwise. There is so much more I could write about. But I don't even think they are worth the effort. I don't know if they'll ever move back to the US. But I don't care to see either of them ever again. My mother got pregnant with me at 16 and had me at 17. Short answer is that it sucked. My mother had some mental issues. I was mentally abused my entire life. She would say things like, "We're more like sisters." Constantly. She would steal my clothes and wear them. She would huff and puff and pout if I bought new clothes. She always tried to have a weight competition with me. "How much do you weigh?" "Oh. Well, I only weigh 7 pounds more. I can wear a little girl sized 16. They're a wild bunch of stuff that would take me forever to write, but basically she finally went batshit crazy. Left. Stole everything from me and then claimed she didn't do anything wrong. I don't speak with her anymore. Mom was 17 and dad was 18 when I was born. They split when I was in kindergarten. The next few months were very unstable for mom and me, moving frequently from one place to another. She married a man about 7 years older than her and that brought us stability and things were pretty normal there after that. Dad continues to be stuck in an adolescent mindset. Continuing to live as a drunken drug addicted leech who still lives in his mother's basement. Don't get me wrong. I still love him and call weekly and I'll visit him when I come home. But even his mother calls my mom and stepdad my parents. I shudder to think about how my life would have ended up without my stepdad's stability and influence. I'm 26 now. My mom had me at 15. Up until high school I saw my mom as a mother like most kids would, but the older I've gotten the more I see her as a sister and my grandma as my mother. When I was a senior in high school, she became a functioning alcoholic pill popper, and I no longer saw her as a role model or a parent figure. My father died when I was about 15, but I never had any contact with him prior to his death. Due to my mom telling me he was a terrible person, I still wonder if that was true. So I never had a father figure to turn to when she was inebriated. Now that I'm moved out and we live in different states, I don't talk to her that much anymore. She came down for Halloween a couple years ago and made a whole mess of everything. Not to mention she was 40 and pregnant with some guy she met in Mexico. So yay, while she was here she took my car out at night without my permission and spilled some drink all over the steering wheel and left it there. I got complaints from my neighbors saying I needed to slow down, and I'm thinking WTF, I was sleeping at home last night. She ended up getting a ticket that night for doubling the speed limit and entered my door. There was a lot of other things she did that Halloween trip, from hotboxing my house while I was at work to breaking multiple glasses on the floor and not sweeping them up. So to answer your question, our relationship isn't very well. I get along really well with my parents. My mom was 19 when she has me. 16 when she had my brother. I like that they are younger now because soon I'll be having kids of my own and they will hopefully get to be a part of their lives for a long time. It's also made me appreciate everything they have done for me. I can't imagine what it was like to be in their position at that age. It makes me love them even more.